Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, cool. So we just got done with round 3 from the New in Chess Classic, the knockout portion. So this is match 2, or no, this is round 2, game 3. Yes, it gets kind of complicated when they start getting into the knockouts because it's like different rounds, different games in the different rounds and stuff like that. It just gets real confusing. Anyway, this is the, like I said, this is round 3. Or this is the game 3 from round 2 from, Levon Aronian and Wesley. So, for all my people from the Philippines, magandang umaga, maayong buntag, higala, and a king, ma kaibigan. I think I got a thumbs up, so I think I'm saying it right, kaibigan. It's just going to take, for it to be natural, it's going to take a little bit of time, but I mean, I'm saying it much better. So, Masaya Akong Makita Kang Muli. Appreciate you guys very much. And anybody that's coming from Armenia or who does speak Armenian, Vok Juven to you. Merci for coming by and taking a look at my stuff. Let me know if there's something else you want to see, and I will try to get that done. But if you guys are ready to go, let's take a look and see what we have for this game. See what's cracking. All right, so we got D4. Knight comes to F6. Knight to F3. D5. Bishop F4. So we do have the London. Usually what happens, like when you get into a tournament, whatever you've been preparing up to the tournament, you pretty much stick to that. You don't really have a lot of time to really vary, in different openings and stuff like that. Usually it takes at least a few weeks to a month and stuff for you to kind of like shift over and, start exploring different lines and things. So we got C5. E3, E6. We got C3, bishop to D6. We got bishop to B5 with check. Knight comes to C6. We have bishop takes C6, pawn takes C6, bishop takes D6, queen takes D6, queen to A4. And we have castles by black. And we've come to the point in the game where we're at the novelty. This is the novelty of the game. I'm going to go back and I'll do that again. Novelty. Like, it's always so funny to me, like when you have castles and it's a novelty, you're like, wait a minute, like that's like the most natural move in the position, right? Exactly. But that's a novelty of the game. So this is the first time this position has ever been seen before in life, and we kind of have like a Bobby Fischer-esque type of move, which is queen to A3. I think some of you guys might be familiar with the applause game, the game 6 of the 1972 World Championships, where Bobby Fischer surprised Boris Spassky by playing C4. And we had a similar situation. The queen was on E7, I believe, and we saw queen back to A3. Just kind of pinning the queen down. The queen is not pinned because we do have knight to E4. So we have some interesting exchanges coming up. So we have knight F to D2. We got pawn takes D4, knight takes E4, queen takes A3, knight takes A3. Pawn takes E4, pawn takes D4, and then we have rook to B8. Kind of throwing a little tickle on this pawn, hoping that white just says, hey, I don't like pawns, and they're just going to do their own little castle real quick, give away the pawn. But we don't see that. We see B3. And then we see the move C5. Now, the idea behind this move is very simple. You're trying to, actually, you can do it without pushing that pawn. Just go bishop A3, bishop A6. Yeah, that's true. So I guess, yeah, I mean, that wasn't opening it up. So C5, it was kind of a move, but I'll be able to take you into like a better course of action if you're trying to break down, the most advanced pawn for white. So we see C5, pawn takes C5, and bishop to A6. But like I said, you can just go bishop to A6 immediately without pushing the pawn. I'm pretty sure you could. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Stockfish will say I'm an idiot. We don't know. But basically, something that was pretty similar was E5. And then after pawn takes E5, you have bishop A6 now. After H3, you have rook after E8. And now you see that you have the ability to recapture this pawn without any type of resistance. And then, rook to C1 is covered by rook B to C8. So you're good to go there. But as you can see from C5 coming after bishop A6, it actually gives white the ability to, protect this pawn. And you've also given white a completely passed pawn. So compared to the situation we saw before, there are no passed pawns for white. So it's just a little bit more accurate to kind of do it that way. And so we see rook to c1. We got rook f to d8. We got knight to c4. Rook comes to d5. We have knight to d6. So as you can see, also, you know, you're giving white like some really strong play with their knight. You know, you got a little counterattack going. You know, you have some really good play with this knight. I mean, this knight, this knight is beautifully placed. As you can see, it's attacking a whole lot of black's camp. So it's a true octopus. You guys hear me talk about octopus knights all the time. I even you know, labeled a video that. Not knight to rook to e5. All right, so we got f5, f3, bishop comes to d3, and we see king to f2. As I always say, guys, with the queens off the board, you don't really have a lot to worry about as far as the king being in the center, because there are a lot less tactics when you're looking at rooks and bishops and knights as opposed to a queen. A queen can be very dangerous because they have a whole array of tactics that they can employ. So we see king to f8. We got g4, king to e7, rook h to g1. We got g6, rook to g3, pawn takes f3, rook takes f3. We have bishop to a6. And then we have a really cute move. As you guys will notice, you know, you don't really have a good way to like damage this structure because after pawn takes, you have pawn takes or even pawn takes. And so you're not fully breaking down the structure. But even though it's not the perfectly best move in the position, we see e4. Now, like I said before, now you have the ability to have these two pawns break down this structure and then take back with the rook, and then the knight can take back and stuff like that. So this is a really, it might seem like the move wouldn't have been possible because it seems like it gives away a pawn or it just doesn't do what you want it to do, but it does. It looks really nice. So we got rook down to d2. We got king to g1. Rook takes a2. Pawn takes f5. Pawn takes f5. Pawn takes f5. Pawn takes f5. And then we have rook to e1 with check. I had to take a breath, man. I kept saying pawn takes f5, pawn takes. It's funny. Anyway, so we have rook to e1, and it looks like it might be getting kind of dangerous for black. They're making it. So we have king to d7, knight takes f5, king to c6. We got rook back to c1. We got rook to d2, knight to e7 with check, king to d7. We got rook to e3, nicely protecting the you know, the knight here. And as you guys will see, you know, you now have 3 pawns for white and you had 2 pawns for black. So that pawn push c5, it did become relevant even all of these moves later. And it seemed like it would have took on a different flavor had you pushed e5 and not given white a pass pawn because it's been pretty dangerous for black now. So the rook comes to f8. We see rook to a1. We see rook f to f2. And it might seem like it gives the bishop away because you could just take on a6, right? But let's see if that's true. The rook takes a6. We got rook to g2 with check. King comes to f1, and then we have rook takes h2. Okay. There's a problem. There's a problem in the position that you have to solve. You have checkmate here and you have checkmate here. You can't parry both of them. So it just looks like white's about to get mated. So I have a question for you. And this is the point in the game I want you to stop the video and see if there's a way to prevent checkmate. Because it looks like it's a mate in 1. I will give you a hint. Like I will tell you what move it's not. It is not rook to e1 because this is mate. So it might seem like that might protect you. Also, this is not it either because that's mate. So it's not moving the rook anywhere to try to protect. So like I said, go ahead and stop the video real quick and see if you can figure out which move you play here. And it's really the only move that saves you, if it exists. All right, cool. So, like I said, this is checkmate. This is checkmate. There's no way to prevent checkmate around your king, right? But one of the things that you guys always hear and you guys always should be familiar with as far as chess is concerned, especially when you're doing tactical problems, is the first thing you do is look for checks and captures. And do you see a capture in the position right now? No. Do you see a check? There are two checks. One is here and one is here. The answer is rook takes a7 with check. And this starts a very serious, crazy series of moves that puts black in a very, very bad spot. Now, I didn't look at this. I feel like that would be a move. But after rook takes, pawn takes, king takes, you're just down a piece. So that's not good. So that answers that question. But after rook takes a7 with check, we see king to e8. Knight comes to c6 with a discovered check from this rook. So this is like some really crazy deep calculation here. The king comes to f8. We see rook to f3 with check, and that forces the king. That forces the king back over, because if we go here, we're going to be seeing check here, and then after this, we're going to be seeing mate. I mean, the king can also go down here, but that's just going to be check. Anyway, yes. So the king goes over to g8. We see knight to e7 with check, so the king comes down to g7. We have knight to d5 with the discover check. The king comes back to g8, and then we see knight to f6 with check, king to h8. We definitely don't want to step back this way because that's going to be check here, and we're going to be winning the rook. So that's going to be a very disadvantageous endgame for black. So we see knight to f6 with check, king comes to h8. And then we see rook takes h7 with check. The rook takes h7, knight takes h7, king takes h7, and then we have a rook to g3. And this is a really, really precise move because this rook is now cutting off. This king, and so the king doesn't have anywhere. The king doesn't have anywhere to go. The king cannot come this way at all. So it's a done deal. This is the position that Wesley So actually resigns the game. Like you guys can see, this rook is going to maybe try to come over here and attack this pawn. But the king is just going to leisurely walk over. And you're just going to be able to basically push these pawns all the way to the promised land. And that is going to be all she wrote. All you really have to do is put this rook, behind this pawn and push that pawn home to glory. This is a completely won endgame. So it's unfortunate, this particular situation, that Wesley So has been eliminated from the New in Chess Classic. So I'm sorry, guys. Apologize to you. But had he not mouse slipped in that first game, I think we might would have seen something different. He possibly could have won the last, round and kind of done something a little bit. But yep, that is that. I appreciate you guys coming through, taking a look at my video. So Maraming Salamat Po, a King Mar Kaibagan, and merci to all the people that are from Armenia. And I will see you guys next time. Leave in the comments, let me know if there's any other videos you want me to cover, or any other players you want me to cover, and I'll see if I can't do a video for you. And I'll see you next time.